And welcome back. Last week, rioters stormed the United States Capitol in support of United States President Donald Trump's attempt to overturn defeat in the November 2020 presidential election. This after breaching multiple police perimeters. They occupied, vandalized, and ransacked parts of the building for several hours. The insurrection led to the evacuation and lockdown of the Capitol building and disrupted a joint session of Congress assembled to count the electoral votes and formalize President-elect Joe Biden's election victory. Joining us now to share more about the latest, including the possible impeachment of President Trump, is Associate Editorial Page Editor at the New York Post, Michael Benjamin. And Mike, good to have you on.
Saying thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Let's get right at it. When we talk about what you saw last week, first of all, your thoughts.
Very discouraging. I actually spent the whole day not even watching the news. It wasn't until like later in the afternoon, after seeing stuff on Twitter, that I finally turned on my TV and then saw what was going on. It's obvious that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, had egged on and encouraged his supporters to go after the Capitol, to go to the Capitol and try to intimidate Congress into, disavowing the Electoral College result and install him as the next president. It was truly, disgusting and dissatisfying, and it was a real danger to members of Congress, particularly Republicans, who were on the floor of both the House and the Senate, arguing to not count the votes from what they said were disputed states that had election fraud and election irregularities, that their own Republican election officials in those states said was untrue and certified the votes as correct, and that Biden-Harris was the winning ticket.
Yeah. When we look right now, based on the insurrection and the sedition, let's talk about where we are today. There is calls for on the part of the Democrats in the House to actually move and introduce the articles of impeachment for the President of the United States. Some people saying that they'll introduce it and bring it back later on in the Senate. They don't have to bring it away right away. But talk to us about if the president do you see the president being impeached a second time?
Democrats seem intent on doing it. I'm not quite sure exactly what the purpose of that would be, other than to exact some level of, revenge against him and to embarrass him and his party. The Democrats have complete control of the House. They could get the votes that they need, at least 218 votes for articles of impeachment and to impeach him. But the Senate is not going to reconvene to hold a trial. And by the time the Senate does reconvene, it'll be the 20th, and we'll have a brand new president. I'm not quite sure exactly what impeaching him would do, other than to, tarnish his already tarnished legacy as a 45th president of the United States.
Well, there's things that are being said, such as, he loses Secret Service protection if it is. He can't run again for president of the United States. Things such as that if he's impeached a second time. And some Democrats feel as though that's important, that you don't have any bit of presidency left after you get out of office.
Yeah, I guess that's one way of doing it. I'm not sure if I particularly agree with that, or that their rationale is correct. I haven't really read everything to say that that a second impeachment would disqualify him from the presidency. I don't see him running in 2024. Even if he did run, I don't see him winning. The Republican Party is backpedaling as fast as they can from him. Yes, he has some diehard supporters, but by the time you get to 2022 and 2024, Donald Trump will be in the rearview mirror. And given his personality and his volatility, I don't see him becoming any less of a divider than he is now. And I think the party needs to rebuild their brand, and they need to get away from the Trump thinking, at least his level of violent populism.
Right. Where do you see things going now with the Democrats having both the House and the Senate? And of course, we know that with the tie in the Senate seats, Vice President Kamala Harris will be casting that deciding vote. Where do we see things happening, and what can we predict happening immediately as soon as Biden is inaugurated?
Well, the president-elect, the next president, 46th president of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, he wants to focus on making sure we can defeat COVID-19, getting Americans vaccinated, getting our economy restarted and back and running again, people back to work, reducing the high levels of unemployment, creating new jobs, creating new industries, having the opportunity to do that. And he's going to need the support of Republicans in both the House and the Senate to get it done. One of the things we haven't talked about is that during Trump's entire 4 years, he really hasn't had an agenda. He hasn't had a legislative agenda that was passed. He talked about building a wall. He was always every week he was flashing new executive orders. You know, executive orders are only as good as the ink that's on the paper and the term of your presidency. Every executive order he signed can be undone by President Biden. So he has no legislative heritage other than the legislation of First Step, which allowed persons who had federal convictions to be pardoned to get out and to restart their lives by having parts of their record expunged. That was a good first step for him and for the nation. That needs to sort of continue for folks who have criminal records and federal felonies and maybe state felonies too, to be able to get their lives back in order because they made a mistake and they ought to be given a chance to to rehabilitate and to get back into normal society and be able to take care of themselves and their families. But that's the only thing I could point to as a Trump accomplishment in his 4 years.
Yeah, give me a little bit too about this because I want to ask the question about the appointments. We know Merrick Garland will be the pick that's going to be Attorney General. What more can we make for what's going to be happening with the president's cabinet? What can we kind of determine based on these appointments that we've seen?
Well, one thing I wanted to point out is that during the Obama administration, during his 8 years, people complained that he didn't have a lot of black and brown faces heading departments. And I always responded to my friends and others, look at who he's appointing to the undersecretary spots, the assistant secretary spots. Those are the folks who are going to be in the government over the next 25 years. And as you look at the folks who Biden has chosen to be his top people, many of them were these undersecretaries, these assistant secretaries under the Obama administration, who are now going to lead major departments and are going to, make the government look a lot more like us and be able to look more like America, having more people of color, various religious groups as well, but be more representative and sort of pushing forward an agenda that's good for all Americans. Biden's first task is to deal with the COVID-19 crisis and then working bipartisanly to overcome our division. It would be pointless for him to continue to try to move forward with an agenda, legislative agenda, if he can't get the country behind him. We forget, yes, Biden got 80 million votes. The president got 72 million, which tells you there are Americans who are supporting him. You need to bring them into the fold to understand that it wasn't about Trump. It's about policies that make Americans better. And if white Americans and others have some level of economic anxiety, you need to deal with that and to help them and others, everyone, uh, you know, get back to work and not have to worry about how they're going to feed their family or that some other group is going to come in and take their jobs and displace them and make life more miserable for their children. We have to lift every American vote and begin to get people to feel better about who they are, what the government is going to do for them and all Americans, that no one is going to be placed ahead of someone else because of the color of their skin, the region that they live, or their political affiliation.
Talking about bipartisanship, I mean, obviously that's going to be the name of the game. You spoke to it earlier. Are you optimistic, given the fact of what we've seen here, December the 6th, I mean, January the 6th, with this insurrection, that this will be the bridge to bipartisanship, or will we see things continue to be further scattered?
I think if Biden and Harris move forward over the next 6 months to focus on things that appeal to everyone and can't be pigeonholed as something that's woke or is progressive or is only Democrats helping Democrats, you can engage the entire nation behind a movement to get Americans back to work, to get the vaccines out, to begin to reduce some of the restrictions when it comes to here in New York, whether you can go to indoor dining, you can go to your gym, your children can have in-school classes, beginning to those things that make people feel better about who they are and what's happening in their neighborhoods and in their hometowns and their ability to work. I think that's one way of moving things quickly that embraces everyone. And no one could say, well, he's only taking care of those people. He's taking care of all of us. Wants to make our nation better. I think he can do that with a bipartisan approach. I think Republicans who are moderates and who are appalled by what happened last Wednesday want to be in that coalition to turn things around. They don't want to continue things on the path that we're headed, because the path we're headed on looks to be one that's going to be violence filled. We don't want that. Whether it's violence from the right wing loonies or it's violence from quote unquote Antifa, we can't afford to have that in our nation. We need to move forward as one United States, as taking care of everyone and making sure that moderates, actually are leading the way. I mean, progressives and the left and the Democratic Party are going to be upset, but we can't move forward with a left agenda if it's going to be distorted and then used to further divide our nation. Because there are 72 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump, and a portion of them were in D.C. last Wednesday trying to create an insurrection and to overturn the results of the election.
Yeah, we got to leave it there, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us. Of course, you'll be back to dissect more as we move forward. There will definitely be more news in the world of politics. Mike Benjamin, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. We're taking a quick break. We'll be back with more shows. Stay with us. We'll return right after this.